Hello there everyone, thank you so much for stopping by, and if you're new, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Every single sub helps out the channel big time. Without further ado, I'm gonna let Ghostface take it over from here.
Say hello to Rodney Alcala. From 1968 to 1979, Rodney Alcala terrorized communities in Southern California and New York. He adopted the name The Dating Game Killer because of his 1978 appearance, where he was a guest on the television show The Dating Game in the midst of his murder rampage. Alcala was born in San Antonio, Texas, August 23, 1943. His father moved the family to Mexico when Alcala was 8 years old, only to abandon them there 3 years later. His mother then moved Alcala and his siblings to suburban Los Angeles with the hopes of starting a new life for her and her kids. During his adolescence, Alcala did not display any apparent deviant behavior or share any commonly found characteristics of serial killers. He was an academically gifted student who was reasonably popular amongst his peers and was supported by his family. Alcala attended various private schools during his youth before graduating from Montebello High School. At age 17, Alcala entered the Army as a clerk, but after a nervous breakdown, he was medically discharged due to mental health issues. The intelligent young man with an IQ of 135 went on to attend UCLA, but wouldn't stay on the straight and narrow for long. On his first known attempt at kidnapping and killing, he was successful at only one of these things. The victim was Tali Shapiro, an 8-year-old girl he lured into his Hollywood apartment in 1968. Shapiro barely survived her assault and beating, her life saved by a passerby who'd reported a tip to police on a possible abduction. Alcala fled his apartment to New York City when the police arrived and remained a fugitive for years afterward. He began using the alias John Berger and then enrolled in film school at New York University where, ironically enough, he studied under Roman Polanski. After being recognized by a few of his students thanks to an FBI poster, Alcala was finally identified as the perpetrator in the assault and attempted murder of Tali Shapiro. He was arrested and extradited back to LA in 1971, but only sent to prison on charges of assault. Shapiro's family kept her from testifying, making a sexual assault conviction unattainable. After only spending 2 of his 3-year sentence behind bars, he was released. Then almost immediately after being released, he assaulted another girl and was sent right back for 2 more years. Then, his parole officer regrettably let Alcala travel to New York to visit relatives. Investigators now believe that within 7 days of his arrival there, he killed a college student named Elaine Hover, who was the daughter of a popular Hollywood nightclub owner and goddaughter of both Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin. After being released the second time, he began to adapt his methods. Alcala would rouse his victims by claiming to be a professional photographer and then invite them to a secluded location for a photo shoot. Somehow, he got a job at the Los Angeles Times as a typesetter in 1978 under his real name, which was now attached to a substantial criminal record. A typist by day, by night he lured in women and young children to be part of his professional photography portfolio, some of them never to be heard from again. His signatures were beating, biting, forcefully assaulting, and strangling, often choking victims until the point of unconsciousness. Then once they came to, he'd start the process over again. Alcala got some sort of sick thrill out of almost killing his victims and then allowing them to live just a little longer. The case that would finally break Rodney Alcala's killing spree was that of 12-year-old Robin Samso. She disappeared from Huntington Beach, California on her way to ballet class on June 20, 1979. Samso's friends told police that a stranger had approached them on the beach, asking to take their pictures. Detectives circulated a sketch of the photographer, and Alcala's parole officer recognized him. Alcala was arrested and held without bail. In 1980, he was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death for Samso's murder. but the verdict was overturned by the California Supreme Court because jurors had been improperly informed of his prior sex crimes. In 1986, after a second trial virtually identical to the first except for omission of the prior criminal record testimony, he was again convicted and sentenced to death. In 2001, a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals panel nullified the second conviction, in part because a witness was not allowed to support Alcala's contention that the park ranger who found Samso's body had been hypnotized by police investigators. While preparing their third prosecution in 2003, Orange County, California investigators learned that Alcala's DNA, sampled under a new state law over his objections, matched semen left at the rape murder scenes of two women in Los Angeles. Additional evidence, including another cold case DNA match in 2004, led to Alcala's indictment for the murders of 4 additional women. Jill Barkham, 18, a New York runaway found rolled up like a ball in a Los Angeles ravine in 1977, originally thought to have been a victim of the Hillside Strangler. Georgia Wickstead, 27, bludgeoned in her Malibu apartment in 1977. Charlotte Lamb, 31, sexually assaulted, strangled, and left in the laundry room of an El Segundo apartment complex in 1978. And Jill Parento, 21, killed in her Burbank apartment in 1979. For the third trial, Alcala elected to act as his own attorney. He took the stand in his own defense, and for 5 hours played the roles of both interrogator and witness, asking himself questions and addressing himself as Mr. Alcala in a deeper than normal voice, and then answering them. During this self-questioning and answering session, he told jurors, often in a rambling monotone, that he was at Knott's Berry Farm applying for a job as a photographer at the time Samso was kidnapped. In 2010, after all 3 trials, he was finally convicted of 8 murders, but is said to have a truly unknown body count. In one of his storage lockers, police found over 1,000 photos of women and young children. Most to this day have not been identified. Alcala spent the remainder of his life on death row at California State Prison before finally dying of unspecified natural causes in Corcoran, California on July 24, 2021, at the age of 77. Let me be first to say, Alcala, you will not be missed. If you thought this one was bad, wait until next week's episode. Stay tuned.